Welcome back, everyone. This is the Fandom Force podcast, episode 2. I am joined again by...
I am Phil. I'm the co-owner and editor-in-chief of thefutureoftheforce.com.
And I am Kat, editor and writer for Future of the Horse.
So we're going to start off this week by quickly going over our Twitter poll that we launched last week. So the question that we asked everyone: should Star Wars writers, directors or employees engage with trolls or hatred online, or should they ignore it? So we had over 100 votes on this, and it came out at 60% said that we should ignore these trolls online. Now, I know, Phil, that was your stance last week. Do you still agree with that stance?
I do indeed, I'm afraid, yeah. I mean, I think it's the best course of action. I mean, now, everyone's entitled to an opinion. It doesn't mean the consensus of us are correct all the time. However, the opposite opinions are equally valid. Whether we agree with them or not is another matter. But everybody's entitled to one. What we shouldn't be providing is a platform in which to spread hateful messages and to members of the cast or even the crew. That kind of content should be stifled, in my opinion. I mean, we never had it back in the day. I mean, obviously, social media's opened that door. But, yeah, I'd like to see it taken out of the equation, to be honest. I mean, even John Boyega's weighed in this week and said, even if you don't like Star Wars or the characters, understand they're decision makers, and harassing actors and actresses will do nothing. You're not entitled to politeness when your approach is rude, and I have to agree with him. I mean, he even says if you paid for a ticket, it does not give you the right to sit there and start attacking these people. I mean, they are just people like us in the end of the day. They're just trying to make a really good movie for us to enjoy. So, no, I think it's nice to see that 60% of the audience agree with me.
I'd say I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I wonder if it does have something to do with our audience being split across several continents, because I know you mentioned last week that Phil's perspective seemed like a very British perspective to you. And so I wonder if anything like that comes into play. But I thought the results are super interesting. I also think there's a difference between indicating support and engaging with trolls. So, like, not support of trolls, but I mean, like, indicating support for the people who are receiving the hate and engaging and, like, actually going in and arguing with people on the internet, because I think those are kind of two different things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think you might be right that it might be a British thing if we had more British people voting on it, but I think it just shows that the whole fandom is very split at the moment, and I think I like to think that those 60% of people that went for ignore are probably just fed up of seeing it. So thanks to everyone who voted on that, and we will be announcing our next Twitter poll at the end of the show. Okay, so we're going to move on now onto our trailer reactions for this week. The first trailer that we're going to talk about is the new Dumbo trailer from Disney.
We're all family here, no matter how small.
Phil, what did you think of this?
I loved it, to be honest. I mean, I think it was full of breathtaking imagery again, like Spider-Man was last week. I mean, the animation on the elephants looks incredible. I'm not sure about the inclusion of humans into the story. I'm a bit of a traditionalist and a stick in the mud for that sort of thing. I would rather play true to the original story, because I remember I've been told many a story about being a baby about Dumbo and me crying at the end when it finished. So, I've got a bit of a passionate stance on it. But having said that, I'm delighted to see Michael Keaton. I mean, Michael Keaton in anything is gold. So, and him sharing the screen again with Danny DeVito, like in Batman Returns, that's got to be worth seeing on its own. Whether or not Tim Burton can pull it off is another matter. I mean, I'm not really a fan of his Alice in Wonderland take. So, yeah, I mean, on imagery alone, it looks fantastic. Whether or not Tim Burton can pull it off, I don't know. Let's hope so.
I am not here for it. I mean, I think it looks pretty. It looks, okay. But I really don't think we need a live action Dumbo. I don't really even think we need any of the live action Disney movies that are being made right now.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. So, like, I'm sure it'll be fine, but I just don't believe we need it. I'm not sold on it. But the people in it are kind of making me curious. But I can't even say if I'll be going to see this one. It's just not really up there on my priority list.
I think for me it was the cast that swung me on this trailer. I think if we didn't have Michael Keaton or Danny DeVito in there, I just don't think I'd be interested at all. Again, like Phil, I've been told that I loved Dumbo as a child. I just think that, like say, these Disney live action movies, I think there's certain ones that lend themselves to a live action story, and I don't feel like Dumbo was, because of the characters. And like you say, Phil, we've gone for a human cast in this one, and I'm not entirely sure whether it's going to work. I've never been a huge Tim Burton fan either, so I think I think I may not go and see this opening weekend. I think I will end up going and seeing it, but I don't think I will. I don't think it's ever going to grab me enough for me to want to go and see it straight away.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Burton's got his own specific style, and I don't think it lends too well to Disney. I mean, he often goes for a very dark approach for certain things, and the idea of it applying it to Dumbo doesn't really sit well with me. So, I totally agree with him.
Okay, so let's move swiftly on then to How to Train Your Dragon 3.
There were dragons when I was a boy. Where they went, only a few know. Our story changed the world forever.
So here we are again, the next episode. I have not seen either of the How to Train Your Dragon movies. You can go ahead and drag me for it. I accept it. But I do listen to the scores of the first two on a semi-regular basis, because that is some phenomenal music. But this trailer, so I don't really know what's going on, if I'm being totally honest. But I'm kind of into it. And I've always meant to go back and watch the first two. It, like so many other movies, I have a list. I always mean to and never quite get there. But I think this might push me. Also, one thing that is interesting to me is the trailers that we're looking at today. These movies don't come out until like 2019, but we're getting trailers really early, it seems. Do you guys feel like this is early?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's unheard of to actually advertise that far in advance. I mean, we're talking over 7 or 8 months away, so it is crazy. I mean, it's happened a few times in the past. I mean, I remember back in the day we had Star Trek Generations. We had a trailer for that literally a year before the film came out, which was bizarre. So it's not unheard of, but yeah, it's becoming a bit more prevalent now.
Yeah, it does seem like it. I wonder if it's something to do with these movies being largely family films, if they feel like they need to advertise those more in advance. I'm not really sure. But I think I'll be turning up for this one. I'll catch up by then.
Yeah, again, like all the other animated features we've been featuring in the last 2 weeks, I mean, the imagery and the quality of the animation is beautiful. The colours in the background are vivid and make for a fantastic fantasy film, so that's going to be great. However, I saw Dragons 1, which I thought was thoroughly enjoyable. For some reason or another, I kind of passed on Dragons 2, even though I had good vibes about the first one. So I'm not sure why I missed out on it, but I shall probably watch this one again. The downside is I'm not really a fan of kids' movie sequels, because I feel they cover the same ground as 100 other movies out there and don't really add anything to the overall story. So I get bored very fast with these kind of kid sequels. So I'm hopeful, but just an imagery alone, it looks fantastic. Some of the night shots and the night imagery with the lights in the background and the blue saturation on the screen, it looks really, really cool. So yeah, I'll give it a look and see how I feel.
I think I probably come from a different angle for this one. The first time I watched the first How to Train Your Dragons was actually with one of my classes. I think, as you guys know, I teach primary school children. And it was an end of the year thing, and I put it on, and I remember starting my planning for the next year, and it kept grabbing my eye to the point at which I was just sat down with all the children watching it as well. And I absolutely loved it. And like you say, Kat, the scores for both of the first two films are phenomenal, and I think that's where when John Powell got announced for the Solo movie, that got me really excited, because this is where I know his work from. The one thing about this trailer that completely threw me is the fact that they didn't use any of that score, and they used a typically cheesy Ed Sheeran song to try and sell it to that audience, to the children.
That's not going to win me over.
Yeah, absolutely. I was horrified by that. I thought, it's How to Train Your Dragon. They can use parts of the score that they've had in the previous two films. They don't need anything new. They can just reuse some of that just to get that feeling back for the film. And they didn't. They went with Ed Sheeran. And it just threw me a little bit. And this one, out of the three, looks like, the storyline anyway, looks the most childish. So yeah, I think I'll probably go and see it at some point, or maybe when it comes out. But yeah, I'm not desperate to see this one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
Our next trailer we're going to talk about is the Predator trailer.
I had a run-in with a space alien. That's the thing that killed my men. It'll take us one by one. So come and get us.
My favourite of the week. Yeah, we can definitely start on the Predator. I mean, I've been a big Predator fan ever since I was a kid. I mean, I wasn't old enough to see it at the cinema, annoyingly. But my brother managed to secure an old VHS copy, and I watched it for the first time on that. And instead of being frightened, I loved it, completely loved it. And I was lucky enough last year to catch it on the big screen up in London. We have got an old cinema over here called the Prince Charles, who show all the old films, and Predator was one of them. So it was presented in the original 70mm, so it was like seeing it on the big screen for the first time. So it was fantastic. So I've been really looking forward to the Predator for quite some time. And Predators was fantastic from Robert Rodriguez, but I really wanted a legitimate sequel to Predator. And after looking at this one, I wasn't overly impressed by the original trailer when it first came out. It didn't really blow me away as I wanted it to. And obviously, after what seemed like forever, the first trailer arrived, and there we are. But now we're on to the second trailer, and it looks similar in tone to Alien vs Predator Requiem, which in my opinion is a bit of a mistake, because the romantic vibe and the teenage flick didn't really suit the Predator environment, even with the aliens involved in that film. So, but I'm delighted with the inclusion of the newly enhanced hybrid Predator. I think it looks incredible, similar in style to the Berserker from Predators. And just being set in modern 2019, it's a direct sequel to Predator 1 and 2, but it's also set before Predators as well, so it's kind of linking the saga together. And the links to the first two movies, Keyes' son is actually involved in this. Peter Keyes, obviously, is Gary Busey's character from Predator 2, who got his head decapitated by the Predator in the butcher's yard. Yeah. So having Peter Keyes' son involved is going to be great. But I was a bit alarmed when Schwarzenegger refused to be a part of the sequel after reading the script, which always rings alarm bells with me. If Schwarzenegger turns it down, you know something's seriously wrong. But the Predator looks great, so I'm hopeful. I was hoping for Alan Silvestri to return and compose the score, but unfortunately Henry Jackman is coming back to do it, so we're not going to get vintage Silvestri. But Shane Black is a great caliber, and he brings a wealth of experience to the project, obviously starring as Hawkins in the original Predator. So I think the franchise is in good hands with him. Whether or not he can pull it off, my fingers are firmly crossed.
I have only ever seen the original Predator film, so it's one on my list to work my way through the others. I remember watching half of the first Alien vs Predator and thinking, what am I watching? So I think for me, as someone that isn't a fan of the franchise, I look at this trailer and is it going to be an entertaining film? And the trailer sells it as that it's going to be an entertaining film. It'll be an interesting watch. I don't know. I just think these films get churned out so frequently. I just don't know about whether the quality is going to be behind it or not, like the original. I think, like you say, Schwarzenegger turning it down, knowing that it probably wasn't about the size of the role. I think he probably would have taken a small role if it was a good script. It does seem to ring alarm bells a little bit for me. So yeah, like you say, fingers crossed it turns out to be a good one, but I'm not confident that it will be.
So I am only loosely familiar with the Predator franchise, so I'm more with you, Sam, on this. And this is one of those movies that I'm also, no offense, Phil, because I know you love it, but I'm not sure that we need. That being said, though, the cast of this movie, much like we were talking about with Dumbo, really sells me. Sterling K. Brown in there, Keegan-Michael Key, Trevante Rhodes. I'm into it. So even though I don't have any sort of childhood experience to build on or anything like that, I think I'm gonna go to this one. I love me some good sci-fi, and this could be that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
People now, clearly.
I think the cast again is one of the redeeming features of this trailer for me anyway. So it'll be an interesting watch, and it is one that I definitely will go and see. So on that note, I think I probably know where we're going to go with this one, but Phil, we'll start with you because I think it's nice and obvious. Which film out of these three are you going to go and see?
Definitely The Predator. Totally sold. I can't wait.
Excellent. So, Kat, if you could only see one, which one?
I would also choose Predator. Actually, that is more my vibe.
Yay!
Yeah. I think just like last week, I think it's going to be a clean sweep on this one. I'm not wild about Dumbo or How to Train Your Dragon, so I think Predator will be one that I will be seeing opening weekend.
Something tore them to pieces.
I think they're attempting hybridization. They're upgrading on every planet they visit.
We need to know if you pose a threat. We're assassins. Isn't posing a threat kind of the point?
Okay, so we are going to move on to Wonder Woman 1984. Now, we got the official title of the new Wonder Woman film, and we had some photos released. So, Kat, what did you think of the release this week about Wonder Woman?
Oh my God. Okay. So Wonder Woman is basically my favorite movie of all time. I have a top 5, but it's pretty. It's a very important film to me. So when I logged onto the internet a couple days ago to find all of this new stuff, I was just thrilled. So we have that photo of Diana looking at like the surveillance television screens that was released. We have that photo of Steve Trevor, who is back. But what's great about it is that everyone is just so excited that he's back that nobody even cares how he got back, right? Like, there's not even any discourse online about, that seems like a glaring plot hole. No, we're just totally on board for it. Doesn't matter. So we have that photo of him in the tracksuit, and then we have some paparazzi photos of the two of them. And oh my God, I am just so excited. I'm not super sold on it being Cold War era, if I'm being honest, because I think American films that do Cold War themes and time periods get a little problematic to me because it's a very one-sided perspective. But that being said, I think this movie is going to be phenomenal, and I am just beyond excited. That made my week.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I think the again, they just seem to be the perfect images to be released for this. Like you said, having Steve Trevor back, not one person is complaining about that. Everybody's excited to see him back. I thought Chris Pine did an incredible job in the first one, and he will probably do the same again in this one. I think you're talking about the era. I think you're absolutely right. That it's a tricky time period to set it in. I think one of the reasons why Wonder Woman works so well is because it was all part of World War One.
Yeah, it looks amazing. The first one was stunning. Patty Jenkins knocked it out of the park with that. To produce a film with that quality against the backdrop of the DC universe, which is in a state of turmoil, from my opinion, right now, was amazing. Just this week on its own, we've had so much content come out of Warner Brothers and DC. And just having Wonder Woman 1984 confirmed, and now talk about Batman being recast and multiple Joker movies and the cancellation of Gotham City Sirens, and there seems to be a lot going on at the moment, and a lot of controversy. I like to see it settle down. I'm hoping Patty Jenkins is going to be able to do that. She's done it first time round. Gal Gadot is fantastic in the role, and having Chris Pine back to Steve Trevor, like you say, is is a home run for me. That's fantastic. Even though I'm fascinated to see how they're going to revive him.
Yeah.
Especially after death in the first one. I mean, and then they touched upon it so vividly in the end of Wonder Woman, and the picture in Batman vs Superman, and then talking the confrontation between Bruce Wayne and Wonder Woman in Justice League about it, and then a romantic relationship linking there between Bruce Wayne and Diana. So I'm fascinated to see how they're going to work all that in and keep the balance to it. So, but I am really worried about the DC universe just now, and I'm hoping that Wonder Woman 1984 is going to be the film to keep it on track, because that's, to me, the first Wonder Woman film is the only legitimate one which has actually come out. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Zack Snyder's work anyway, and I don't think he's suited to the DC universe. So, yeah, I'm very hopeful for Wonder Woman 1984, and I can't wait to see it. I mean, even the score for the first one was fantastic. If they can keep the same composer and Rupert Gregson-Williams, would be fantastic. So, yeah, fingers firmly crossed for this one.
Yeah, I think I've never really been one for an either-or with Marvel or DC. I just, if it's a good film, I'm going to enjoy it. But you do almost wish that the original one, or the first Wonder Woman, was the only one in that DC universe. I just feel like it's the only one that has really hit with fans, or the majority of film goers in general. I think everybody that went to go and see that film would accept that it was a fantastic film. So yeah, I think, like you say, it's the state of DC is the worrying part of this, that are they going to try and change what they did in the first one to try and fit in with the rest of it, when actually they did such a good job with the first one. I feel like they just need to let Patty Jenkins run with it, and see what she can do.
Yeah, fingers crossed she can pull it off. I mean, the first one was so gritty and visceral, especially depicting the war injuries of World War One. I mean, she wasn't afraid to tackle the harshness of it. So can she top it with the sequel? It's going to be a tough ask, but I can't wait.
Me neither. I'm so excited.
Definitely.
Having said that, we've had some great imagery come out of Aquaman today.
Oh yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. What are they like?
Well, we've got in the original comics and the original series, we had Atlantean warriors riding seahorses. We've got that again. We've had one riding a giant crocodile, and a whole host of them riding great white sharks. So it vividly, imagery alone, it looks incredible. So if that can live up to the hype, it will be some movie.
Yeah. Again, I'm not sold on Aquaman, but I will have a look at those pictures later, and maybe we'll discuss the state of DC next week.
A good blaster, the right crew, and no job's too big.
Heads up!
Okay, so we have got something from Phil. I know this is something that you wanted to talk about, Phil. So we're going to talk about Star Wars Battlefront and the state of gaming at the moment. So Phil, I'll pass over to you for this one.
Thanks, Sam. Basically, I wanted to just bring a light onto the solo of Star Wars story content we've just recently received on Tuesday. I mean, we've been waiting for quite some time for the solo story to drop, and the content has finally arrived, and we've been given 2 new skins for Han Solo, 2 new skins for Lando, a new attire for Chewie, and of course Lando's Millennium Falcon. I mean, who wouldn't want to fly Lando's Falcon, which is also voiced with L3, which is super exciting. However, a lot of people have been coming on the timelines of Future of the Force complaining about the pricing structure of each costume. I mean, all other characters in the past have been anywhere between 5 to 40,000 credits on the game, whereas now both Han Solo costumes are now been priced at 80,000 credits. Lando has been priced at 80,000 credits. Chewie has been priced at 35 or 40 even, and then the Falcon is been priced at 35,000 credits, where the previous incarnation with Rey and Chewie was priced at just 5,000. So the pricing structure is a little bit bizarre. I mean, especially if you take on the average teenager. I mean, my son, for example, he's 12. He plays the game religiously, but on any level, whether it be Galactic Assault or Blast, the most credits he ever brings home is the best part of 500 credits. So if you're talking saving up for these characters, 500 credits a time does not equate into the 80,000 credit bracket that easily. It's going to take him ages to obtain that, just one skin. And now you're talking, you're doing that 4 times over, and then another 35,000 on top of that with the Millennium Falcon. I find it baffling how kids are going to compete at that price. I mean, we've done a poll on Future of the Force today, and a lot of people are saying that the content should be free, and I agree with them. When the press release came out from EA Star Wars, they actually said the content would be free, and now you turn around and you're looking at a £40,000 per attire credit sequence. It's bizarre. I mean, I don't understand how they expect kids of now the teenage bracket or even younger are expected to keep up with that statistic. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm myself am not a huge gamer, but I know obviously when I was a child playing games and things, they created storylines that made you want to play over and over again, and now it just seems all about playing the same thing over and over again, but doing it to try and achieve new things or to try and achieve new skins or new characters and things like that. And I just think it just seems to take the enjoyment out of gaming in general. To spend that much time just to achieve one character, and that's like you're saying, that's just one character. If they wanted all of those, I can't imagine how many hours you're going to put into to try and achieve that. It just seems ridiculous, especially for the younger generation. I know that most children are probably restricted on how many hours they can spend on games and things like that as well. So it almost seems like it's an unobtainable goal.
Very much so. I mean, we've also got Clone Wars content, which has just been announced recently, which we're getting, Count Dooku, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and General Grievous. I mean, are they going to be 80,000 each as well? I mean, by the time that my son unlocks even one Han Solo, or even two, for example, we're then going to be backed up with another 4 characters, which are all going to have to be unlocked again at 80,000 credits each. I mean, it's astronomical. I mean, I don't see how they intend or expect kids to keep up with it. It's crazy. I mean, my son alone today, my son has come home. Instead of his first line after school is normally, can I play Battlefront and take over the PlayStation? But he's come home today and he's like, no, I'm not gonna bother today because I'm never gonna get Han Solo. So it's like it's taken the fun out of it for him already. And so we've only had it for 3 days. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I don't. Does it? I'm curious. Do they give you the option to buy it outright?
No, it's basically you have to earn enough credits to download it.
So that is the only way to do it.
Exactly, yeah. Or there is a crystal system. You can trade in crystals, which you don't start out with that many, and you only get a certain amount per round. Right. So it's pretty impossible to get them just like that unless you saved up a hell of a lot of credits. But not many people can do because we've just had the Endor attires all drop. And we've had Leia in booster skies, and we've had Lando and Skiff attire drop, but they're all 40,000 each. And it's like now Han Solo from a Solo a Star Wars story is 80,000. It's double. It's crazy.
Yeah, it does seem. I know they had the whole structure at the start when it came out. It does seem like they haven't really moved forward with it. They're not addressing the fans' concerns for the game.
No, they keep making the same mistakes.
I know for me, I didn't buy it straight away. I bought it when it drastically dropped in price. When it first came out, I was one of the people that the only reason I was interested in buying the game was for the campaign storyline. And I think within hours of it being released, there was a video on YouTube with a playthrough of it. So I just ended up watching that because I just thought, what? I don't want to have to spend £50-60, however much it is nowadays, on a game that I know that I'm not going to play that much because of these exact issues, that I don't have the time to play these games for hours on end every day to try and achieve those kind of goals.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't understand how they expect kids to do it either.
Right, so have you got any suggestions, Phil? What do you think EA can do to try and resolve this situation?
Well, it's pretty much the same as they did before. I mean, there's been so many problems with it, and they've had so many complaints. I think they should reduce it down drastically. I mean, just bringing it in line with the other characters at 40,000 would be achievable. It's still a little bit high for my liking, but it'll be more reasonable to most people. Or even dropping down to 20,000 each would be sensible. And at least give everybody a chance to get these characters before the Clone Wars content finally arrives in a few months' time. I mean, the first rollout of the Clone Wars content begins in July, which is only a few weeks away. So it's like, no one's going to be able to achieve all these characters in the space of a couple of weeks. It's impossible. So that would be my suggestion to EA: is drop the pricing structure to either 40 or even 20,000, and get people back on side, because my son on his own has already turned around and said that's enough for him. So it's putting customers off, and so they really need to address it fast.
Yeah, and I don't think that's an unfeasible job for EA, and I think that if they did that, they could quite easily refund the people that have already spent all of their credits on those characters. They could refund the difference, couldn't they, quite easily?
Yeah, it's just a sensible approach.
Yeah, definitely. Right, well, we'll keep our eyes peeled for that one and see what EA does in the future. But fingers crossed they'll make a sensible decision on that one.
Science fiction is so good at these kind of social themes.
Yeah, the great thing about Star Wars is I had a thing, I mean, a vessel that I could throw anything into.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems you have in science fiction with movies, they don't have it in books or anything, but in movies, you have to create a real world.
Yeah.
And it's a real world that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you have to do what Kurosawa used to say is, it has to have immaculate reality.
Yeah.
Even though it's not
I like
real.
that term.
So our next story seemed to come out of nowhere a little bit this week. I wasn't expecting a George Lucas story this week. But in James Cameron's new documentary, The Story of Science Fiction, James interviewed George Lucas about his mythology and his attitude towards filmmaking, and they discussed a little bit about the Phantom Menace and the midichlorians, the infamous midichlorians of the Phantom Menace. And George Lucas just dropped a few little hints about what he would have done with the sequel trilogy, and tried to explain this side of the Force a little bit more, just to try and draw all trilogies together through that. So, Kat, what did you think of this story?
I thought it was super interesting. Okay, so he was basically indicating that there are microorganisms that are what make up the Force, like that are slightly separate from midichlorians. But it's these things that control the universe, essentially, in one way or another. And that is really interesting to me. I don't think that anybody would have liked to see this sequel trilogy, but I think there would have been a lot of backlash to it. But I think that the idea itself is really interesting and something that maybe isn't best in a film, but could really shine in a series of books or something like that. Because I want to know now. I want to know more. And George Lucas indicated that he had this whole plan and like he wanted to tell the story from start to finish. And now I really want to know what the end of the story looks like to him. But at the same time, I think that would have just destroyed our fandom even further.
Yeah, I'm the same, really. I mean, it did come out of left field. George's ideas for the sequel were a little out there with the micro universe, but they were true to the original screenplay he wrote back in the 60s. I mean, the wills were part of the screenplay up until the last rewrites have been completed, and we never got to hear about the Guardians of the Wills. And the ancient order of the Wills was a higher order of being deeply connected to the Force. And the Wills kept a collection of stories called the Journal of the Wills that chronicled the history of the galaxy. So now the whole take of following the saga through to actually learning about the Force in its entirety would have been fascinating. But I agree with Kat. It was a little bit out there. The only time we've ever heard about the Wills was when Kazin Endor dropped a few tidbits of it during Rogue One. And it is a shame looking at it now that George believed that many fans would have hated the project, and that's the reason why he moved on from Disney, which is funny enough. That's what we were talking about last week. We were saying about the reason why George walked away. It was possibly because of the hatred and the backlash, that he didn't want to be attacked for producing another trilogy. So it's a shame that it actually comes to that he walks away from what he created and what he loved and what he really brought to so many people, and he walks away from that because of fear of being attacked. So it's a shame. I would love to have seen, like Kat said, either in its own TV series or in a book. Whether or not it would have translated on film, I agree with George. I think the backlash would have been a little bit too harsh. So I don't blame him for not following it through. But they were even talking about it with Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison sitting around a dinner table before to sell to Disney. They were pictured talking about it. There were rumors that it was going to happen, and then he just up and sold. So it's a shame. It's a very, 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 very sad day. No, just listening to his thoughts and saying that's why he walked away. It's upsetting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think there's definitely a lot of sadness in this, and he definitely has come across for the last couple of years that he regrets, I think, selling Lucasfilm to Disney. I think as soon as and I think it's well known that he passed on all of his Episode 7 ideas to Disney, and I think they just chucked in the bin, and I think he's definitely felt regret, and that this definitely isn't the story that he would have told. But from Disney's point of view, they're trying to tell the story that engages new fans and engages more people as much as possible, and obviously tries to make as much money as possible. I have no idea where he was going with this. I understand that he wanted to tell the story of the midichlorians, or the Force, as it were, and the backstory of the Force, but he didn't really give any hints as to what the storyline would have been within that. And I don't know. I think it would have been, like you say, a very, very difficult thing to translate onto film. Even in books, I think there's books that over-explain things. I almost think it would be best suited to an infographic book. And yeah, I think it almost suits itself to that sort of book where you can get Pablo Hidalgo to sit down and explain all the intricacies of the Force and exactly what it means to be a part of that world. I think that's probably where I think it would be best suited. So yeah, I feel really sad for George Lucas, because ultimately we would have none of this without him. It's been said many times that it was his galaxy that he created, and it does seem sad that he's still around and witnessing it all happening and not being a part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's humbling to hear his words today.
I just hope one day we do find out what those exactly what his stories for the sequel trilogy were. I'm sure somewhere he has got an outline of what they were going to be, and we'll find out one day.
We're also looking at working with people that are interested in coming into the Star Wars world and taking us to places that we haven't been yet. And that's exciting too, because it's a vast galaxy far, far away.
Okay, so talking about interesting to read some ideas for the sequel trilogy, I pitched to the two of you this week that we were going to have a hire or fire idea, and pitch our own Star Wars story ideas, and it could be from any era, any character, and pitch it as if we were pitching it to Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy. This is going to be our next Star Wars film. So, Kat, I think we're going to start with you on this one. Try and sell us your new Star Wars film.
All right. So, picture this. Dr. Aphra, right? The woman we have come to love.
Sold.
Through... Yes. Done. Nothing further.
Sorry, continue.
The woman that we've come to love through the recent Star Wars comics. I would love to see her storyline adapted to film, but not just her storyline. Like, yes, an Aphra, like, archaeological adventure, right? Almost like Space Indiana Jones. But I specifically want to get into the Ordu Aspectu storyline, because I really like some kind of weird conceptual sci-fi stuff. And the Ordu Aspectu is the like splinter group of the Jedi that many years ago were trying to find a path to immortality, and then ended up fighting with the more orthodox Jedi about their activities. And so I would really love for her to like get into a situation that kind of brings that history back to the forefront. Because where I really think the franchise needs to go is back, as well as maybe going forward. But like, I want to see like Knights of the Old Republic stuff. I want to see like not origin stories of specific characters or anything like that, but like origin stories of the forces that we know in the universe, of the Jedi, of the Sith, like of the Republic, like those kinds of stories. Because I think we need to go there. I think that presents room for growth for the franchise. So I'd love to see a kind of merging of the two, where we have an Afro storyline, which is in a timeline that we know, but it's tied in with the Espectu stuff from so long ago.
I love this idea. I love Dr. Afro. I love the comics. And I love the idea, like you say, of going back, going way, way back and finding out a little bit more about these different groups that splintered off the original Jedi Order. I genuinely thought in The Last Jedi they were going to do this. I thought that that's where they were building to. I thought that they were going to drop loads and loads of Old Republic like hints in The Last Jedi, and then the next trilogy was going to be an Old Republic trilogy, and they just did next to nothing on it. So I love this idea, and straight away, as soon as you said it, I think Indiana Jones Tomb Raider kind of feel to it. I think it would be a huge film, and I think it suits itself to the big screen.
That would be incredible. I'd love to see that film.
So I think this is a nice obvious one for us. Phil, would you hire Kat or would you fire her?
I'm totally on board. Kat, you're hired.
Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely, we are making this film happen.
I'm ready. I've got my my writing skills out and ready to go.
Lucasfilm, I hope you're paying attention.
Yeah. Amazing. Phil, let's go to your pitch.
Oh, okay then. The galaxy is on the brink of collapse. War rages. Mandalore, with its warrior ethos of fire and fury, are taking over the galaxy, and only the Jedi Order in its infancy stands in their way. An ancient movie depicting the old Mandalorian warrior ways against the Jedi's fleeting infancy. An incredible visual spectacle of war. However, I would also settle for a legitimate Boba Fett movie with Daniel Logan and Tamora Morrison cast as the main character.
I think as soon as you mentioned Mandalore, I genuinely did do like a little fist pump.
It has to be done. We need a Mandalore movie.
We absolutely do. Kat, what do you think of this idea?
I am so into it. I really want to know about the origins of the Jedi Order. So please tell me. Please explain it all to me right now.
How many fans would it appease to have the origins of the Jedi and Mandalore at the same time? No,
right?
No.
Two birds, one stone. You got it.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's got to be done.
Absolutely. I think, like most people, any Mandalore stories are ones that I eat up so quickly. I loved all of it in the Clone Wars, but especially in Rebels, going back to Mandalore. And I think you could do so much with the houses and then linking it into the Jedi as well. It's such a genius idea. Yeah, well done on this one, Phil.
It's got to be done. No, I love the idea. I'm just excited talking about it.
Yeah. You've sold yourself.
The inner 12-year-old just jumped for joy.
Yeah. So I think this is another easy one. Kat, what would you hire or fire Phil?
Hire right away.
Yeah. I'm with Kat on this one, Phil. I'm spending all my money on this film. Go and make it.
Kathy Kennedy, I'm open to offers.
Yeah. Right. Unfortunately, I feel like I might be the Rian Johnson of this group, and I might have gone a bit into dangerous territory, especially with the Disney films. Ooh. So my proposed film is actually set between The Last Jedi and whatever the next one is called.
Oh.
Okay. So we are in sequel trilogy era. And my idea is that the story is going to focus on two boys that have been driven from their home, and they've smuggled onto a ship to avoid being taken by the First Order. So it's all about the First Order taking these children and training them, and these boys have managed to escape, smuggle themselves onto a ship, and they've ended up on Batuu, which is the planet of Galaxy's Edge, and I know it's going to be touched on in the new Thrawn Alliances book. So they end up in a cantina-style bar, and they're pickpocketing when a man steps in and tells them to stop, and this isn't the place for that, because they'll end up getting themselves killed. After a short conversation, he agrees to help them and to get them to a planet called Coruscant, where he's going to try and smuggle them away, and they can then get lost in Coruscant because it's so big. They'll be able to avoid the First Order there. And we haven't seen Coruscant in the sequel trilogy, so I thought that would be an amazing place to go and visit and see what it's like now. And they manage to get there, but then they're spotted, and they need to hide. They end up in the arms of bounty hunters of some kind and end up having to help them out with a job to try and regain their freedom. During the job, they then find out, and this is the key point, that the man is, or was, once a Jedi, and we find out that it is Ezra. And he describes losing many friends and friends that were once enemies, hinting to Thrawn. And they then complete the job. The boys want to stay on Coruscant, but he has other plans. After hearing stories of Luke, the rumours of Luke passing through the galaxy, and we end with him leaving to join the Resistance.
Wow. Well, I'll have to turn around and say, Sam, you sold me on that one. I think it sounds fantastic. I love it.
I really like the idea of focusing the story on a younger generation, even younger than our sequel trio, because I think that's really important to kids. There are so many kids watching Star Wars, and I think it would be really cute for them to see themselves on screen.
Yeah, that was my idea behind it, that we could have this adventure story, but it could be a children's adventure story while still having those links to other canon and having Ezra in there. I just think I'm such a huge Rebels fan that I would love to see them pop up somewhere in a live action film. So yeah, that was the angle I was going at with that one.
Yeah, anything with Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to be fantastic anyway, so yeah, go for it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'd hire you.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'll hire you too, Sam. Yeah, I'll hire you too.
So there you have it. We've got 3 new films lined up at Lucasfilm. So they don't need to worry about what's coming after the episode 9. We've got it sorted.
We've just established the Future of the Force story group.
Absolutely. So I think I suggested that we write these story ideas up. So I'm hoping that we'll get an article out in the coming week or so, so that you can read maybe into a little bit more detail of our story pitches there. Moving on from our Hire and Fire, we are going to release our new Twitter poll now, jumping back to that George Lucas story.
Yeah, basically the new poll for this week is: would you have liked to seen George Lucas's vision of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, or would you rather have seen the sequel trilogy that we have now with obviously The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and then Episode 9? So give us your thoughts, join on the poll, and we'll address them next week.
Yeah, and I think this doesn't necessarily mean that would you have rather seen this midichlorian film that he has described, that maybe would you have liked to seen George Lucas oversee the sequel trilogy and write it, because obviously I think that obviously would have been adapted for films. So Kat, what do you think, just quickly? Would you rather see George Lucas oversee the sequel trilogy, or are you quite happy that Disney are in charge?
Oh, I am so conflicted because I love what we have received. I love Rey, Finn, and Poe, and all of our new friends. But at the same time, he had a plan, and I still think it's a shame that we don't get to see the end of that.
Yeah, I am firmly on the side of George Lucas overseeing the whole thing. I mean, I did enjoy The Force Awakens, and I loved The Last Jedi on my first screening of it. Unfortunately, though, every resulting screening I've seen since then, I've actually liked it even less. So I'm actually delighted by the notion of having George Lucas oversee his original excellence. So I would love to have seen him oversee it.
Yeah, I think I'm with Kat on this one. It's such a difficult decision because I am one of those people that has loved everything that has been put out Star Wars wise since Disney have taken over, obviously to varying levels. But I just remember that feeling sitting in the theatre whilst The Force Awakens was starting, and I've just never felt excitement like that. I just have this tiny suspicion that if George Lucas was overseeing it, I think I would have a hint of suspiciousness going into it, that I would be unsure about whether this was going to be a good film or not, purely because of the prequels tarnishing, or to some extent tarnishing, the universe. So I think I would probably just side with Disney on this one. But like I said, it's open to discussion, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what everybody comes up with over the course of the next week.
Definitely. Get in touch and share your thoughts.
Another episode wrapped up, guys.
Fantastic.
It's been great discussing all these stories again with you. Kat, do you want to just quickly know where everyone can find you online?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at @catlovesfilm. That's cat with a K. And then you can find my writing on thefutureoftheforce.com.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @FeelTheCall, or I'm also social media manager for Future of the Force, so you can find me at Future of the Force, at futureoftheforce.com, and Instagram, and on Facebook. So come and find us.
Amazing. And I am at Sam PP Thomas on Twitter. And obviously, to keep up with all the latest fandom news, you need to head to www.thefutureoftheforce.com, where all of us will be writing various articles about all of your favourite film and TV. Okay, we will see you next week.